So this guy did it all. A great defenseman, great broadcaster, probably one of the most respected Minnesota North Stars of their glory era. Even scored a penalty shot against Ken Dryden. And you're saying, how can a defenseman score a penalty shot against Ken Dryden? Well, if your name is Tom Reid, you could probably do it. Now, Tom Reid came into the NHL as one of the most highly regarded defensive prospects from Fort Erie, Ontario, to ever be produced. At 6'1", 200 pounds, born June 24th, 1946. Eventually played 701 regular season games with Chicago and Minnesota over 11 years. Now, not known as a goal scorer, again, the famous penalty shot goal in 71 against Dryden, it was the only penalty shot ever scored against Dryden and one of the only 17 goals that Reid scored in his career. Now, Reid, who had a very successful career as a state-of defenseman, retired in 78 after contracting an unusual rash caused by his hockey equipment, very similar to what Mario Tremblay was going through with the Canadiens. Now, because the rash was so prevalent, he couldn't really recover enough in time, sometimes playing in great pain, and he chose his future health because that can develop into cancer, so no disgrace in that. Now, he came to Major Province again with the Blackhawk system. He played 3 years with St. Catharines. Last year was his best, 24 points in 45 games. 67, he also had time to play for the St. Louis Braves of the CPHL. Now, his breakthrough year with Chicago was 68, when he had 4 assists and he played 9 games in the playoffs. Back to Dallas for some seasoning the next year, but played 30 games for Chicago in 69 before finding his way to the North Stars, where he played 18 games. Now, he had his first NHL goal in 1970, and the Dryden goal in 72 was his kind of career year. We had 21 points in 78 games, including 6 goals, and 5 points in the playoffs, including 1 counter. Now, he also was very strong in the 74 season with 23 points in 76 games. Now, full NHL totals don't really tell the whole story because he was considered probably the defensive quarterback of the Minnesota North Star team, a team that really had Goldsworthy, Hextall, some really, really strong players on there, Dennis O'Brien as well. So he was kind of quarterbacking the shorthanded kill too. Very, very what do you call in-shape player. Danny Gallivan said he's probably one of the most durable defensemen that Minnesota ever had. And between 69 and 78, that decade proved that, every season he was taking the hits, doing a lot of ice time. I think one announcer said in Minnesota, he's the guy that probably invented the 35-minute defensive time per game because he skated miles and miles and miles. And wasn't afraid to take a penalty every once in a while. Like he's 654 minutes in penalties. So anyway, personally, a lot of people in my circle of media have talked about in recent years really forgotten or underrated players. And Tom Reid was one of that. If he played in Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal, that man would be similar to a Chartrand or a Nyrop or Lachlan. Not Lachlan, but players, like a John Van Boxmeer, right? Because he could score when given the chance. Like he had a good shot, I know that. But Minnesota, you only had 2.5 lines to work with, so you had to have somebody to back that was competent enough to stop the goal totals. And unfortunately, Minnesota, other than that 71 season, they didn't go. When they had that semifinal run. But that was his best playoff too. He had 6 assists that season and a few against Montreal in the semifinals, where technically it could have won 7 games because Minnesota scored late in Game 6, but a goal was disallowed that would have sent it to overtime. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. That's the legend of Tom Reid. Have a good evening.